Greetings and salutations, this is Huge Ass! And it's time to look at the 7th video in the series from Taboo Conspiracy called Flat Earth Truths, which are in fact Flat Earth Lies. This one's called The Aeronauts. It's about balloonists. Very appropriate given Taboo's truths are full of hot air.
On May 27th, 1931, Auguste Piccard
I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
became the first man to reach the stratosphere at an altitude of 51,775 feet. That's much higher than the maximum cruising altitude of all existing commercial flights. In this Popular Science article, Piccard described the Earth as follows. It seemed a flat disk with upturned edge.
Well, quite frankly, I'm not surprised. It's possible Piccard didn't know how to express himself. I mean, he was the first person to ever see this, so it's a bit hard to describe something that no one has ever seen before. And given he was French, perhaps something was lost in the translation. Regardless, look at this shot from Mr. Sensible's Mage 2 experiment. It's from about the same height. I'd say that description isn't too far off, wouldn't you? Taboo seems to be saying here, one person described it as a flat disk, therefore it is a flat disk. Not the strongest of arguments. But if you're inclined to listen to him, and that's all the evidence he provides, you're probably going to go with that. That's the manipulation that people like Taboo do. Don't fall for it. Demand he answers reasonable questions. Ask for empirical measurements. Something that looks like something doesn't necessarily mean it is.
Then in 1933, Russian aeronauts reached an altitude of 62,304 feet. That's higher than the maximum cruising altitude of the Concorde jet and higher than the alleged commercial flights of the MiG-29.
And in both the cases of the Concorde and the MiG, passengers report seeing the curvature of the Earth with their own eyes. I've actually spoken to several of these witnesses. Many people over 40 have at some point. Strange how you haven't mentioned this, Taboo.
This is how Popular Science described the aeronauts' experience. Looking down, they tried in vain to detect any curvature of the Earth's horizon. Of course, Piccard and the Russians should have seen the curvature of the Earth at those altitudes, but they didn't, even though they wanted to. Kudos to them for their honesty.
Yes, kudos to them for their honesty. Of course, you can be honestly wrong. Unlike you, Taboo, who is always deceptively wrong, as I'm showing in this video series. Not being able to detect curvature doesn't mean it wasn't there. It seems that flat earthers expect to see a complete ball at any altitude. Earth is huge, and when you add cloud cover and other atmospheric distortions into the mix, it's a little hard to see where the horizon is, which makes it even harder to see curvature. To be certain that you can see curvature, you have to basically get to the Kármán line about 100 kilometres up. But regardless, this highlights a problem that flirts seem to have, apart from the one about expecting to see a ball. They don't understand the difference between seeing and perceiving. I mean, as anyone who's had anything to do with the military knows, you can camouflage up so that someone could look straight at you and see you, but not perceive that there's a human there. And perhaps a more relevant example is this observation made by Rory. You can find this on mctoon.net, link in the description. If you stand on the cliff tops and look out at the ocean, you'll see the curvature of the Earth, but you won't perceive it. It'll look flat, because the Earth is huge and you are too close to it. If you do as Rory did, he set up some metal levels so that he knew they were level and that nothing would change if you compress the image horizontally. And when you do compress the image horizontally, you'll see that the apparent flat ocean is actually curved. Of course, there's no trick to this. Anyone can do it. And if you doubt this, I encourage you to do it yourself and find out for yourself. You can't get more honest than that.
Although I will be sharing high-altitude balloon footage at much higher elevations proving there is no curvature and no axial rotation, these testimonies from these unbiased aeronauts in the 1930s evince that no one you know has ever seen the curvature of the Earth belying the claims of the globe propagandists.
Well, you showed some footage. I couldn't find any frames where the horizon was horizontal, so I couldn't do the horizontal compression test to see if it actually was curved or not. And in most of the shots, the field of view is so tiny that you couldn't really see anything anyway. Luckily for Taboo, we have lots of images of the Earth's curvature. Next time, mate, put up some measurements to prove that there's no curvature. As I showed earlier, our eyes aren't good enough to perceive it sometimes, and what we see isn't always what we think it is. And as for no one you know having seen the curvature of the Earth, as Rory showed, anyone who stood on the ocean's edge and looked out has seen it. They just didn't perceive it. People who flew on Concorde or the MiG-29, they've seen it as well. Even from lower elevations you can see it, although sometimes it's a little difficult. Not to mention the number of times that surveyors have measured curvature. Again, mctoon.net is the place to go. There's a link for that in the description as well. And of course, all this actual objective empirical evidence belies the claims of the flat earth propagandists. The corgi's warming up, so if you like this video, click the like button. It really helps me out, as does leaving a comment. And if you'd like to see more of what I do, click the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you get notified of future videos that I put out. And if you really like what I do, you can become a channel member by clicking the join button below. For $3.99 Australian a month, that means you're a part of the huge ass movement. So there's nothing left to do but cue the corgi.
You're just